like broths. His biological father lived in England at one time. His parents were divorced when Singer was 12. He's given small roles to his parents in this film. Mildred Singer was an extra in Apt Pupil, which I've seen Apt Pupil, and he was an awkward kid who was bullied throughout school. Um, and so, Singer ended up studying filmmaking for 2 years at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and later was transferred to the USC School of Cinematic Arts in Los Angeles, where he followed the critical studies program. The first film he was direct was Lion's Den in 1988 with his childhood friend actor Ethan Hawke. In 1994, he founded the production company Bat Hat Harry Production in homage to Steven Spielberg and the famous line from Jaws. And if you guys have ever seen Jaws, because I've seen Jaws many times, Martin Brody says to an elderly swimmer who's teasing about not going into the water, "That's some bad hat, Harry." Hat meaning like hair. Um, the current logo, introduced in 2001, is taken from the police lineup scenes of The Usual Suspects. You ever seen The Usual Suspects, Jason? I'm pretty sure you have. It's a pretty decent uh, film too as well. So let's look at the director of some of the films that Bryan Singer has done. He's done The Usual Suspect. He did At Pupil, which is a film adaptation of the Stephen King novel. He bought the rights from Stephen King for $1 million. X-Men, X2, Superman Returns, Valkyrie starring one Scientologist, Tom Cruise, X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, and Bohemian Rhapsody, the biographical film of the band Queen and Freddie Mercury. Josh Reeves did an excellent breakdown of it on his YouTube channel. I definitely go recommend that you look it up if you want to get a good background of the movie and Josh Reeves' extensive knowledge of Queen and of Freddie Mercury. Bryan Singer is openly bisexual and has one son with actress Michelle Clooney. He's also stated in an interview with the BBC that his sexuality and ethnicity heavily influences filmmaking. And so he talked about, both being bisexual and both being Jewish growing up, of how they affected his filmmaking, especially with X-Men and X-Men 2. As well as Bryan Singer says that he was very obsessed with the Holocaust as a child and a man's inhumanity to man, and ultimately it came from a fear of intolerance. So yeah, it's very weird for the Holocaust is a horrible event. It's very weird for someone as a child who, like if your parents have lived through the Holocaust and you were a child, or you lived through the Holocaust as a child, then yeah, of course I can understand that. But so many years later, it's like, it's just very interesting that it became very obsessed with it and became a big part of his, as a child, a big part of his reaction to his films. So let's talk about the alleged crimes of Bryan Singer. So during the film of At Pupil, in 1997, allegedly, allegedly, there was some issues with some of the boys for the film being filmed naked during At Pupil. Devin St. Album, 14-year-old extra, accused Singer of asking him and other minors to film a showered scene in the nude for the film At Pupil. Two other adolescent boys, 16 and 17 years old, later supported the 14-year-old's claim, and a suit was filed. So according to the St. Album, a 17-year-old plaintiff named Ryan Glomsky and Peter Gordon, and the attorney for the third minor, which is 16-year-old David Stockdale. The boys were all local high school athletes recruited by the production, and they were asked to bring bathrobes to the set to film a nightmare sequence in which shower stalls turned into gas chambers. While the parents of the minors sat in the gym, the extras, who range in age from adolescents to geriatrics, were led into a locker room and instructed to change into a sheer peach-colored G-strings provided by the wardrobe department. Nobody really said anything, but we looked at each other. We were uncomfortable, says St. Alvin. You could hear everyone saying, "What the heck is that?" Globisky remembers. People were nervous. According to St. Alban and Globisky, the extras wearing the robes over the G-strings were ushered past their parents into a shower room set, where they were told to take off their bathrobes. Then St. Album and Glomsky said they were asked by assistant directors Fernando Altashal and Tom DeSantos to remove their G-strings and to be naked. So they felt very uncomfortable about being filmed and being naked for that. And the boys also alleged that they were filmed for sexual gratification, which is why they were made to be made nude, even though the movie did not show them to be nude. Now, Phoenix Pictures didn't comment, and the filmmakers may have been under the impression they were conditionally allowed to film the minors unclothed. Staples said that he had seen an official improvement from an employee in the California Department of Labor, which authorized the filmmakers to film the teenagers nude that day, provided they were shown only from the behind. The Department of Labor did not comment, so it's okay to show uh, nude teenagers as long as you show their butts. That's fine. Peterson says that if the note exists, the department has no right to waive the law. And according to Rube, the waiver signed by Glomsky's parents contained no mention of nudity. Um, so next in the life and crimes of Bryan Singer, we have his connections to one Michael Collins Rector. In the early 1980s, Rector founded Telequist and Florida-based communications company. In 1984, he founded World TravelNet, a company that was electronically coordinated cruises and tours. Its affiliates WorldComNet was floated on the Vancouver Stock Exchange in 1987. Its valuation peaked briefly at 100 million before increasing competition led to bankruptcy. Rector later founded an early ISP, Concentric Network, which made it easier and quicker for people to log into chat rooms and message boards at that time in 1991, along with partner Chad Shackley that they had met online on message boards. Chad at that time was 15, who would later become Michael Collins Rector's lover. I allegedly, through all my research, Michael Collins Rector groomed a Chad Shackley and possibly may have um, did illegal things with him when he was underage. Um, Rector and Shackley sold Concentric in 1995, and using money raised from the sale as well, close to $100 million of investor and venture capital money, formed an early internet video media content delivery company called Digital Entertainment Network in 1998. Running Den out of the Los Angeles mansion, Collins, Rector, and his business partners, Chad Shackley, who was Rector's romantic partner, and Brock Pierce, hosted lavish parties attended by Hollywood's gay A-list. It was these parties that Colin Rectors and others allegedly sexually assaulted many teenage boys. Brock Pierce starred in movies like Mighty Ducks, D2, and First Kid. Pierce retired from acting at age of 17 and joined as a minor partner with Mark Collins Rector and Chad Shackley in establishing Den, which succeeded in raising $88 million in venture capital. Some of Den's investors included Microsoft, which Microsoft announced in 1999 that Den was going to be one of their partners in the Windows Media Broadband Jumpstart Initiative, focused on creating a video and audio entertainment for the Windows Media format for high-speed connections. Dell Computers, Chase Capital Partners, former Walt Disney Television president David Newman, Garth Ancier, American media executive and founder programming at the WB. Um, Later, Michael Agan also accused Acer of allegedly sexually assaulting him in 1999. David Geffen, a record executive and founder of DreamWorks. Gary Goddard, founder and CEO of entertainment design for the Goddard Group. Michael Huffington, Ariana Huffington's husband. And Bryan Singer, who pledged 50,000 to Den, and Singer even starred in what amounted to a digital station identification for Den. In a short promotional clip, he reclines in a chair while announcing, "You are watching www.den.net." The first show for Den was Chad's World, which was loosely based off of Shackley's life about a teenage boy questioning his sexuality who moves into a Los Angeles area mansion with three adult men, including his older brother and his older brother's boyfriend. And as an 18-year-old, Pierce was making $250,000 a year and held 1% of the company's share. In October 1999, a young man from New Jersey, identified only as Jake W., filed a lawsuit alleging that Collins Rector had sexually molested him for 3 years, beginning in 1993 when he was 13 years old. The lawsuit was filed just prior to Den's scheduled initial price offering, causing concern among potential investors and leading to the resignations of Collins Rector, Sheckley, and Pierce, leaving Jim Ritz in charge. Additional lawsuits against all three resigned executives followed, and the controversy and turmoil caused by the allegations led Den to withdraw its IPO of $75 million and subsequently filed for bankruptcy in 2000, never earning a profit. One early senior level Den employee remembers asking why so many teenage boys were on the payroll and being told that they did computer work. The employee also recalls attending a company party and allegedly seeing teenage boys filling a movie theater in the casino mansion. The employee tried to go inside but was stopped by a bodyguard who said kids only. The employee asked a colleague what was going on. And he said they had seen some of it, that it was definitely porn. The kids were all laughing and eating candy, but were not totally allowed into that room. So later, there were lawsuits that were brought against Collins Rector for allegedly sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy from 1993 to 1996 and 1999. Collins Rector settled the case, but his publicity damaged his reputation, and shortly after, he, Shackley, and Pierce resigned from DIN. DIN had planned to go public in 1999, but like I mentioned earlier, ended up filing for bankruptcy. Um, so there were, multiple suits of Colin Rector. Multiple reviews were later filed against him during that same time period. Um, they were all the charges were and claims were remarkably consistent. Allegedly, the claims that they were all bullied, they were all drugged to coerce sexual compliance, and in some cases threatened with loaded guns. Which you see that with a lot of the allegations against Collins Rector, Shackley, anybody in this group, even Bryan Singer, allegedly, you'll hear the same things where they were drugged, they were bullied, and they were even threatened sometimes with weapons. Their families were threatened, their friends were threatened. Um, so in August 2000, a New Jersey federal grand jury indicted Collins Rector on criminal charges that he had transported minors across state lines for the purpose of having sex with them. After his indictment, Collins Rector fled to Spain together with Shackley and Pierce. Interpol arrested them in May 2002 in a villa in the South Spanish beach city of Marabella. Guns, machetes, and child pornography were allegedly found in the house. And the local Spanish authorities said they found an enormous collection of child porn. In their absence, the plaintiffs were awarded default judgments in the amount of 4.5 million, but have only collected a small fraction of that. Collis Rector fought the extradition proceedings for 2 years, returned to the United States, and then pled guilty to 8 charges of child enticement and registered as a sex offender. He admitted to luring 5 minors across state lines for sexual purpose. He received credit for time that he served in a Spanish jail and was registered as a sex offender under weekly supervision. Eventually, petitioned the court in 2006 to go to UK to get treatment for a rare brain tumor. When he landed in UK and had surgery, he immediately renounced his U.S. citizenship and was never extradited back to the United States. In 2007, he was photographed in London, and in 2008 was living in the Dominican Republic. There was a last photograph of him in 2007, the United Kingdom, was published by The Sun with the headline "Tycoon Pedo on the Prowl in UK." And it was pictured him swimming around in Britain with having a limo, surrounding himself with young boys. Um, so you might be asking, John, why are you talking about all this with Collis Rector? And here you go. Good old Steve Bannon is involved in this. Now, Brock Pierce founded an internet gaming company in 2001. And then later, when he returned from Spain, now he wasn't charged with anything. Brock Pierce, when I read the reports, everything, they took pity on him that he was being used for everything. But he founded this internet gaming company, and between 2004 2005, they bought out a whole bunch of small competitors. So eventually, Pierce brought in one Stephen K. Bannon to seek venture capital for him, and a deal was made in February 2006, yielding $60 million, of which Pierce took away for $20 million from a minority stake. The next year, facing a class action lawsuit, the company completely failed and no assets, and Pierce was forced out. Apparently, Collis Rector was a silent partner in the MMORG service company IGE as well, and that's one thing that I wanted to mention. And IGE initially used the address in the city of Marabella, Spain, where Collis Rector, Shackley, and Pierce shared a villa until it was raided by Interpol. So, yep, good old Steve Bannon. I guess he didn't know anything about that, did he, Jason?
No more than he knew about what was going on in his house in Florida.
So, real quick, we're going to talk about the 2014 allegations with Bryan Singer. There were allegations brought forth in a lawsuit that Singer was talked about um, in 2014 with one Michael Egan III. And Michael Egan III talked about how Singer allegedly gave him alcohol, gave him drugs, took him to Hawaii, and allegedly molested him multiple times and threatened his family. A senior level employee of DIN recounted a party where underage boys had been shown pornography and recalls seeing Egan there. Because Egan did work for DIN. He was on the show Royal Standard, was paid $1,500 per week for his work, plus an additional 600 per week without any designation of why he was giving that money. Egan was also promised stock in Den, extravagant gifts, and transported to different locations on their private jets. Singer also allegedly promised Egan pardon X-Men for his silence. Um, so yeah, before withdrawing his lawsuits, Egan passed a polygraph and was interviewed for nearly 7 hours by a psychiatrist who found him credible. At one point, Singer had agreed to pay Egan $100,000 settlement, but Egan rejected the offer, refusing to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He also said that he had felt pressure to sign the statement that David Newman was innocent. So what happened? All this was Michael Egan made accusations against Jeff Herman, Bryan Singer, Garth Answer, Gary Goddard, and David Newman. And his attorneys, Jeff Herman and Mark Gallagher, were who representing him during this time. And so one by one, the allegations were dropped, but nothing was ever Garth Answer allegedly said that he was not in Hawaii, that he was, because since he was the president and programming chief of NBC Entertainment in Los Angeles and New York, that he was not in Hawaii at that said time. But as Jason and I read the court documents, he couldn't prove that he was never in Hawaii. That would have never surfaced. You can't. There's no proof of that. But the lawsuit was still dropped, and all of these lawsuits were eventually dropped. Now, some of them say it was because Egan's lawyers had abandoned him because they found out he was part of a Ponzi scheme in North Carolina, where he's eventually sentenced to 2 years in prison, which is true. He was. Um, but that still doesn't mean that the allegations that he made previously were untrue. And there's been really no proof of that outside of a deposition he did make in 2003 where Egan tried to defend Brock Pierce, and then his depositions he claimed that he had never been to Hawaii, and he claimed that he had never met David Newman or seen David Newman naked. However, he did mention in those allegations, in the deposition, allegedly that he, in a statement, that he was drugged and he was sexually abused. But he didn't. But we don't. I couldn't find the full testimony, so I have no idea where it's at. Um, but I was only able to find bits and pieces that were reported on and bits and pieces of the testimony itself. And he does say that in there. And actually, Egan's mother actually confirmed that he did go to Hawaii at least twice. So these Egan's allegations were dropped against all those involved parties. And so yeah, I just wanted to mention about Egan and about how there are some inconsistencies in his allegations, but nonetheless, he does seem credible based off all the information that was given. Author Bret Easton Ellis also alleged that two of his former partners have attended underage sex parties hosted by singer and fellow director Roland Emmerich. So yeah, and then there was a 2017 lawsuit that was less than that was brought on by a gentleman named Cesar Sanchez Guzman, against Singer, that he allegedly molested him on in 2003 on a yacht owned by Lester Waters, a wealthy tech investor who allegedly hosted parties for young gay males in the Seattle area. Um, and Singer was actually fired briefly just a few days before from the Bohemian Rhapsody set, right before it had 3 weeks left before the movie was going to be wrapped up. Now, some people claim it's because Singer was just being an asshole. Other people's claim is because 20th Century Fox allegedly knew that this was about to drop and they fired Singer. Now, recently there was Alex French and Maximilian Potter published their investigative report in the Atlantic about 4 additional men that alleged Singer sexually assaulted them. I definitely recommend that you guys go read that investigative report that recently just came out on January 23rd. We will cover Bryan Singer more in depth in our other podcast. We've read the documents once we get to Petalwood. But that being said, I just wanted to briefly go over him now and the crimes that are brought against him, the multiple allegations that he has of sexual abuse and sexual coercion and violence, and also the lawsuits about the out pupil kids being filmed naked and being uncomfortable about that and everything. So there are many, many, many allegations against Bryan Singer, and hopefully one day he will have his day in court. Um, but that's all I got to say on Bryan Singer. Did you find the Steve Bannon stuff interesting?
Of course, I did. I also wanted to mention very briefly. There's a lot of weird things when you look at the history of this. I believe in 2000, Berman was dismissed as an unfit lawyer. And did you mention
Mm-hmm.
that in 2003 there was allegedly an incident where Egan testified 400 times claiming the Fifth Amendment? That I mean, there's just a lot of weird things with these cases, but they're all involving process. There's certain issues with Hawaii's anti-SLAPP rule to get deposition when they kept trying to get Ansier and Singer to prove their whereabouts, where they kept saying, well, the prosecution did not file it correctly, that it would have been honored otherwise, and that's why a motion to dismiss was continuously granted. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of tomfoolery going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of there wasn't anything. No one could ever prove that the Egan allegations were incorrect, from what I could tell. And also there, as much as I'm gonna pile on Gabe Hoffman later, the movie An Open Secret does do a good job basically covering what I've just talked about. Um, and and you're right. It's weird. I mean, even Egan, when he withdrew his lawsuit because no one would represent him back in 2014 against Bryan Singer, federal district judge Susan Oki Malaway, who graduated from Harvard, she was appointed by Bill Clinton. She was like the first Asian American federal district judge, granted the request allowing him to withdraw his suit without prejudice or award of costs of fees in the interest of justice, meaning that he could bring a suit against Bryan Singer again.
Exactly. There's just so much sidestepping going on here, and it. I don't know if they're trying to ride the clock or destroy Egan's credibility so that nobody would believe anything. But this is definitely an interesting set of events that continues to draw the interest of audiences everywhere. Particularly, I mean,
And Bryan Singer is still directing Red Sonja, which Red Sonja is about. The protagonist of Red Sonja is a survivor of sexual assault, and he's still working in Hollywood to
well, you
this day.
mentioned X Men and Egan wanting a role in that. I'm going to drop a little bit of trivia on you. A lot of people may not know. Originally, before is it Patrick Stewart? Um, Originally, before that, Michael Jackson wanted the role of Professor X, and how
Well,
fun would that have been?
okay.